Hello everybody, Nature's Compendium here, and welcome to my first ever Speedpaint video where I'll be showing you my creative process in designing animals for my animated videos. Now this video is actually going to be part of a two-part behind the scenes series, where I first show you guys how I design and draw animals in Adobe Illustrator, and part 2, which should hopefully come next week, will be showing you guys how I animate these animals in After Effects. So for starters, before I even begin the final drawing, I like to do color concepts, where I basically like to get a rough idea of what the overall color scheme and patterns will look like before I begin adding finishing touches and finer details. Now, a lot of you guys have asked me before what art program specifically I like to use, and I personally use Adobe Illustrator. Specifically, I like to create vector art, and I'll show you guys later in the video what kind of brushes I use and at what sensitivity. Now, in terms of the pattern and color scheme itself, I actually found this work in progress image of a upcoming Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaurus Rex sculpt, and while the paint scheme for the sculpt was incomplete, I looked at it and was like, dang, this would look really cool on Tylosaurus. I also found this image of a monitor lizard from the San Diego Zoo website. I'm actually not sure what species it is though. And I also was looking at pictures of an eastern indigo snake, which is an indigenous snake species of Texas, which actually, in spite of it not being venomous, it eats rattlesnakes, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I'm quite pleased with how the final color concept turned out, and I was very excited overall when the discovery of Tylosaurus Rex was unveiled. I thought it was so cool to see that a specimen I saw all the way back in 2024 at the Perot Museum turned out to be an entirely new species, and one from my home state of Texas. And due to quite a few personal emergencies over the past couple of months, it has been hard getting back into videos, so having an animal that's very similar to one of the first animals I've ever worked on, being Mosasaurus, was a good way of me kind of like getting my foot back in the door. Now, I'm still working on several projects involving more land-based animals, including dinosaurs, mammoths, and a couple other species. But as someone trying to get my foot back in the door, I really wanted to get something out a little bit sooner, and aquatics have always been a lot easier to animate, and they're just my bread and butter. And in addition, I don't really animate the walk cycles for any of my land-based animals. All of those have been done so far by talented artist Tyler Stone, and I'll link his stuff in the description below. But if you guys are enjoying these kinds of videos in addition to my long-form, fully animated projects, please let me know and I'll look into maybe making something similar for a dinosaur, or even something like Dinosuchus, for instance. So now that the color concept for the Tylosaurus is done, I can start by adding the much more finer details. Now typically I like to start with the head of the animal and work my way down, but it really depends on which species I'm drawing. Sometimes it's easier to start from the body, like for sauropods for instance. But for Tylosaurus and Mosasaurs, as well as theropod dinosaurs, I always like to start from the head. And you'll notice that as I'm drawing, I like to break the body into different segments. Basically, how I animate in Adobe After Effects is through a combination of motion graphic techniques and puppet pinning. But basically, I design all my animals to where each individual part can be rigged and attached, and of course we'll go into this in more detail during the After Effects tutorial. However, I do want to say that some of the techniques that you're seeing me doing here when designing and layering the Tylosaurus head, especially when it comes to where the teeth go, are actually very useful for designing theropod heads as well, especially if you choose to depict your theropods with lips. Now, I don't always choose to depict my theropods with lips, especially with my recent projects on Spinosaurus. Both species, Spinosaurus aegypticus and Spinosaurus mirabilis, will not have lips. However, they also have interlocking teeth at some sections, so that required a lot more complex layers, and so did my Ankylorrhiza video, where the Ankylorrhiza had some interlocking teeth at the front of its jaws, so I had to layer those teeth separately. But essentially what you want to do whenever you're depicting a large animal or a large predator, whether that be a mosasaur or a theropod that has lips, you want to create a separate layer for the teeth, and you want to put that layer behind. But you also want to make sure that the upper teeth layer is behind the lower jaw and under the upper jaw as well, and then the lower teeth layer will be under the upper teeth layer. That way, the upper teeth won't show on top of the lower jaw, if that makes sense. But if you're depicting a dinosaur that's lipless, then you don't have to worry about layering the upper teeth beneath the lower jaw. And in fact, that's what makes drawing and animating Jurassic World dinosaurs, especially like the Jurassic World Carnotaurus I made last year. And then hopefully sometime this year, you guys will see the Jurassic World T-Rex, both Ember and Rexy don't have to have the teeth set up that way, so it's actually a little bit easier whenever I want to do like open and close animations for them. And you honestly don't really need to make a separate layer for the teeth at all because they're lipless. They can be kept on the same layer as the head. But yes, from my understanding, animals like mosasaurs and Tylosaurus were definitely lipped predators. They essentially are just giant monitor lizards that evolved into whales, which is pretty darn metal if you ask me. And from my understanding, I don't think they've ever been historically depicted as lipless, but correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the Jurassic World Evolution 2 Tylosaurus low-key looks like it has a really bad case of herpes. I despise the appearance of that model. And I really hope that if they do bring it back in Jurassic World Evolution 3, they actually go back and correct it. And it would be even cooler if they maybe implement some things that were revealed about Tylosaurus Rex. I think that'd be really sick. Now, a game that does have a really good depiction of Tylosaurus is none other than Path of Titans. And I was actually gifted a copy of Path of Titans by a Twitch streamer, Andy Wu1. Thank you very much. His link will be in the description below. And he gave me the game as a gift late last year. So this year, in celebration of the Tylosaurus Rex video that I'm going to be dropping, I will also be doing my own Path of Titans giveaway to one of you lucky viewers. Once the final video drops, be sure to comment down below #Tylosaurus, and I'll randomly select one of you lucky peeps to receive a copy of Path of Titans. And it was around about this time that I kind of realized that the Tylosaurus design I was creating kind of looks like the Walking with Dinosaurs Leopleurodon, like the original Walking with Dinosaurs, not the recent one. And my wife, on the other hand, thinks it looks more like a zebra, lizard, dinosaur, whale thing, which, you know, valid. I kind of think it looks like a goth or like an emo boy, especially like at the face. It looks like he has really bad black eyeliner, but I absolutely love it. And I'm not sure if they would have been overly patterned like this, but I do believe that at the very least, it still follows like conventional counter shading. From my understanding, there are fossils and skin impressions that imply that mosasaurs were darker in coloration and also possessed counter shading, which is a common visual appearance of a lot of marine-based predators, where basically they are darker on the top and then lighter on the bottom. And the reason this appears to be so consistent in the animal kingdom is because when you're darker on the top, if something looks down on you, it's harder to see underwater. Whereas if you're lighter on the top, you look more like, or sorry, lighter on the bottom, you look more like the surface of the water above you. So it's very effective camouflage for open ocean predators. But alas, I really wanted to create a pattern that was more than just, you know, black on top, white on the bottom. I could see myself doing that for some smaller species here and there, because I don't know if I'm going to include a lot of other species in this video. However, maybe for like comparative sake, I'll create like a Tylosaurus proeger model, and that design will probably be much more simpler and conservative. But another thing you might notice with a lot of my previous dinosaur designs, with the exception of things like Carnotaurus and my upcoming Spinosaurus designs, is that I typically like to make a lot of my main character dinosaurs and animals more conservative in their appearance, and that is intentional, especially if it's a like how scientifically accurate video, because I feel like if I add a lot of outlandish speculation while critiquing a Jurassic World design for being scientifically inaccurate, that kind of adds a bit of discrepancy there. And while I do still try to maintain as much scientific accuracy and plausibility as possible with each design, I do like to exercise a lot more creative freedom with certain animals when I can. But something that I definitely want to try to do more often is introduce and showcase more speculative behaviors and features. So for the Tylosaurus video, for instance, I definitely want to do a scene similar to the Prehistoric Planet episode where the Mosasaurus is getting his body and teeth cleaned by different species of fish, and because Tylosaurus rex is an animal that shows evidence of having a quite violent lifestyle, I definitely will include at least 1 or 2 fight scenes in this video too, but I still want to sprinkle in those moments where the animal is just chilling, vibing, and just, existing, enjoying life. I also did originally want to make a scene where the Tylosaurus gets in a fight or a scuffle with the Dinosuchus, but A, that would be a lot of work on my end, and I do want to get this video out pretty quickly. B, I do want to create something on Dinosuchus, but I definitely want a lot more time designing that animal, so I don't want to rush the design. And C, even though they existed around the same time, there isn't any evidence that I'm aware of them being contemporaries with each other, as in living in the exact same location. But who knows, maybe when I do get around to Dinosuchus, we could do a Dinosuchus versus Tylosaurus matchup for that video. But alas, my primary objective with every animation video is to be as educational and entertaining as possible without overly indulging in clickbaity, epic prehistoric battles / power scaling / Spinosaurus versus T-Rex 1000th edition, whatever. Like, imagine if PBS Eons and Kurzgesagt had a very colorful, creative, and slightly chaotic baby. That's basically what Nature's Compendium is trying to be. And my animations are still very, 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 very far from the best and far from the level of quality that I want to deliver consistently. Having said that, though, I am a one-man show, and I really feel like I'm getting closer and closer to that moment. So thank you all for your support thus far, and if you guys like these kind of videos, please let me know. As I've mentioned earlier, I've never really shared my creative process with anyone to this extent before. And I do plan on making paid tutorials in the near future where I go into much more detail as to how exactly I draw things, as well as providing downloadable files for people to follow at home. But having said that, I still think it's nice to provide something that everyone can just check out on their own and maybe try at home. And I have a very suspicious feeling that my next video will probably be a little more popular, because I feel like anybody can draw with whatever platform they want, but more people want to see how I animate. And while I won't be giving away all of my secrets for free, I'm hoping that whatever I do show will inspire people to not only try these tips and techniques at home, but maybe even make their own channels and start animating a bunch of extinct animals too. It'd be really cool to see more and more creators pursue animation the same way I have, or even in better ways. There's plenty of talented YouTube animators all across using different ways of animation, whether that be through 3D animation like what Dead Sound does with his videos, as well as like what Digital Duck does with their videos. And there are plenty of paleo creators who are doing speed drawings and speed paints, as well as 2D animations, but like actual traditional 2D animations and not the After Effects motion graphic style animations that I create. So that's always really awesome to see. But yes, as always, let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments below. Thank you all once again for all of your continued support. If you like what I'm doing, be sure to follow me on social media, and be sure to follow me on Patreon for free, as I'll hopefully begin posting my monthly updates again, giving you guys behind the scenes look of other upcoming projects for the year. And of course, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I will see you guys in the next video. As always, thank you for watching.